Imagine for a moment that the ground beneath your feet could dissolve in a single breath, that the seas would rise without mercy, swallowing homes, temples, entire civilizations, until all that remained was silence. Humanity has told this story countless times across deserts, mountains, jungles, and oceans. It is not confined to the Bible nor to any one people. It is older than the written word, older than memory itself, and it whispers like a tide moving through the ages. The myth of the flood. But what if it isn't just a myth? What if these stories are fragments of a truth too vast for one culture alone to preserve? Everywhere we look, this story resurfaces like a wave that refuses to die. In Mesopotamia, it is carved into clay. Among the Maya, it lives in chants and sacred texts. In India, it flows with the cosmic rhythm of time itself. The Aboriginal peoples of Australia, the tribes of the Americas, the temples of the Incas, all echo the same refrain. Once, humanity drowned, and from those waters, something new was born. The question that haunts us is why? Were these stories metaphors for the collapse of civilizations? Or are they encrypted memories of something far more real, something humanity has tried and perhaps failed to forget? Long before Genesis spoke of Noah, before Moses led his people across the sands, even before monotheism itself was conceived, the Sumerians had already recorded their own tale of a flood. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, written more than 4,000 years ago, we meet Utnapishtim, a man who survived because he listened. According to the story, the gods had grown restless, not because of wickedness or rebellion, but because humanity's noise disturbed their eternal sleep. It is a strange reason, almost petty yet hauntingly human. Among the divine assembly, only one voice spoke in compassion: Ea, the god of wisdom. Rather than declare the secret openly, he whispered to the very walls of Utnapishtim's home, knowing that true seekers hear even the words unspoken. Utnapishtim heard, and he built, not a graceful ark, but a massive cube, the most stable of shapes, a symbol of the earth itself, unyielding, sacred. Into this vessel he gathered everything that represented life: his family, artisans, seeds, animals, knowledge. For 6 days and 7 nights, the storm raged like a living beast tearing at the sky. And then, silence. The cube ark came to rest on the peak of Mount Nisr. What did he do first when he stepped out? He offered sacrifice, not out of fear but gratitude, restoring the bond with the divine. He then released a dove, a swallow, and finally a raven. These were not simply birds. They were emblems of spirit, of endurance, of the soul searching for land. The raven found it first, proving that the new world does not begin in perfection but in survival, in instinct and shadow. As a reward for his obedience, Utnapishtim and his wife were granted immortality. Not as heroes but as witnesses exiled at the edge of the world, forever marked by what they had seen. Gilgamesh, the restless king who sought him out, discovered something more profound than the secret of eternal life. He realized that immortality was never about flesh or fame. It was about memory, legacy, the story that endures after death. And so he returned to his city wiser, finally human. This tale teaches something unsettling. The flood is not merely a punishment. It is a selection, not of bloodlines, but of awareness. Those who survive are not the strongest or the most righteous, but those who listen, those who sense the unspoken, those who build their inner ark long before the storm arrives. The real flood is not the water outside, it is the forgetting inside. When consciousness collapses, when we lose the bridge to the divine, that is when the waters rise. But the story doesn't end in Mesopotamia. In India, it takes on a different form, a gentler rhythm, one that pulses with the cycles of creation. Time here is not a straight line, but a circle. where endings and beginnings are bound together. In the Vedic tradition, we meet Manu, the first man, ancestor of humanity. One day, while washing his hands in the river, Manu encountered a fish that spoke, a fish that knew the future. This was no ordinary creature, but Vishnu himself in his first incarnation, Matsya, the fish avatar. Matsya warned him, the waters would come, vast and unstoppable, yet salvation was possible. Build a boat, he urged, and bring not only your family but sages, seeds, pure animals, and the sacred texts. For what must be saved is not merely the body of humanity, but its soul. When the deluge arrived, it was not sudden destruction, but a ritual unfolding. The waters rose in rhythm as if choreographed by divine design. Manu's boat was tethered to the horn of Vishnu, who guided it safely to the crest of a sacred mountain. When the waters receded, a new age began, a new Manvantara, a fresh cycle of humanity. Here, water was not an enemy but a midwife. It dissolved the false so the true might be reborn. Manu's boat, like Noah's or Utnapishtim's, was not just wood afloat, it was consciousness itself, navigating the currents of illusion, what the Hindus called Maya. To survive the flood meant to hold on to essence when form dissolved. And perhaps that is the greater lesson. The flood does not come to end life, but to clear space for renewal, to wash away illusion so truth can shine. From the rivers of India, the myth journeys eastward into China, where the flood is neither a punishment from the gods nor a cosmic reset, but a test of wisdom. Here the waters do not fall to cleanse humanity of sin. They surge to challenge humanity's ability to live in harmony with nature. The myth speaks of a time when the heavens cracked, when rivers poured over their banks, villages drowned, and the earth seemed ready to dissolve into chaos. In such moments, people cried for salvation, but no prophet descended from the sky. Instead, an engineer appeared. His name was Yu the Great, son of Gun, and unlike the heroes of other traditions, Yu did not attempt to defy nature with brute force. He did something far more radical. He listened. For 13 years, he wandered the floodplains of China, observing the rivers, mapping the valleys, reading the mountains as if they were sacred texts. He did not fight the water. He guided it. With canals and channels, he sculpted the land, coaxing the chaos into order. The price was immense. Legend says Yu labored so tirelessly that when he finally returned home, his son no longer recognized him. This was no warrior with a sword, no king crowned by battle. His weapon was patience, his throne, the respect of a people saved from ruin. By taming the waters, Yu became more than a man. He became a founder of dynasties, an emperor chosen not by bloodline but by spiritual merit. What this story reveals is profound. In China, the flood does not reward faith or sacrifice, but understanding. The one who survives is not the one who prays louder, but the one who listens deeper. The Tao itself, the way, is reflected in Yu's work. Water is soft, yielding, yet it conquers all obstacles not by resistance, but by persistence. The flood then becomes a mirror, showing us that chaos cannot be crushed, only redirected. Across the oceans, among the indigenous peoples of the Americas, water takes on yet another voice. To them, the world was not a stage with gods above and mortals below. It was a living organism, and water was its blood. When floods came, they were not divine punishments, but acts of healing, the earth purging infection, resetting balance. The Maya preserved one of the most haunting versions in their sacred book, the Popol Vuh. According to their tradition, the gods created humanity in stages. The first humans were molded from clay, fragile, soft. Unable to hold the breath of divinity, they crumbled away. The second attempt was carved from wood, strong in form but hollow in spirit. These wooden people walked, ate, reproduced, but they had no memory, no gratitude, no prayer. They lived without consciousness, and so the gods unleashed a storm unlike any other. A rain of resin, rivers that raged, beasts that turned against their masters, tools that rebelled against the hands that wielded them. The world itself rejected them. It was not evil that doomed this humanity. It was emptiness. Automatons without soul cannot endure. In the highlands of the Andes, the Incas spoke of their own deluge. Here, the great creator god Viracocha released the waters to wipe away a race of giants who had upset the harmony of the world. When the flood subsided, Viracocha walked across the surface of Lake Titicaca and summoned a new humanity into being. This detail matters. The new creation was not only born from the waters, but also from the creative word. Viracocha spoke, and from that vibration, order returned. The message is clear. Creation is not just matter rising from chaos, but word, intention, consciousness breathing life into form. Notice, too, that this new age began at the highest of heights, Lake Titicaca, the world's highest navigable lake. It is as if the myth is reminding us that after the flood, only what is elevated survives, elevated in spirit, in wisdom, in reverence. Further north, the Hopi people carried their own powerful vision of the flood. They believed that we do not live in the first world, but in the fourth, and that each previous world ended in catastrophe, one of which was a great deluge. Those who remained connected to the Great Spirit were warned by mysterious beings they called the Ant People. These beings, perhaps symbolic, led the chosen underground into caverns within the Earth's core. There they endured not with abundance but with humility, living off little, learning patience, listening to silence. When the waters finally receded, they emerged transformed, ready to rebuild a new world on firmer spiritual ground. In this telling, the flood is not simply an outer event but an inner journey, an initiation into the depths of the soul. The underworld is not hell. It is the womb of renewal. Without that descent, there can be no rebirth. Taken together, these American stories remind us of a crucial truth. Floods are not isolated events nor final judgments. They are recurring tests, waves of amnesia and remembrance that wash over humanity. Each time, the lesson is the same. When we lose our connection to essence, when we forget gratitude, when we live as hollow shells, the world reacts. It does not punish out of cruelty, but out of necessity. Balance demands sacrifice, and yet beyond these myths lies perhaps the most alluring legend of all, the one that whispers of a civilization so advanced, so radiant, that its fall still echoes like a warning through the ages. Atlantis. Plato, in his dialogues, does not describe it as mere fantasy. He claims to have heard it from Egyptian priests, custodians of ancient knowledge. Atlantis was said to be a land where temples of orichalcum shone, where wisdom was cultivated alongside power, where the harmony of heaven and earth was mastered. But something broke. Knowledge was severed from the sacred, power grew without reverence, wisdom bent into arrogance. And in a single day and night, the island was swallowed by the sea. Unlike other tales, Atlantis did not fall because of ignorance. It collapsed because of hubris, because humanity forgot the heavens while reaching for the throne of gods. Occult traditions later interpreted Atlantis not just as history, but as archetype, a symbol of what humanity can achieve and also what it can lose when it betrays its own spirit. From the mystery of Atlantis, we return to a story far more familiar to the Western world, the tale that shaped the moral imagination of entire civilizations, the biblical flood. In Genesis, Noah is described as the one righteous man among a corrupted humanity, chosen to preserve creation itself. He builds his ark, fills it with pairs of animals, and watches as the world drowns under 40 days and nights of relentless rain. To most readers, it is a story of divine punishment, yet hidden beneath its simplicity are layers of meaning, codes that speak to something deeper than destruction. The number 40 appears again and again throughout Scripture. 40 years in the desert, 40 days of fasting, 40 nights of rain. In esoteric traditions, 40 symbolizes purification, the time required for the soul to shed what is impure, to undergo transformation. The ark, then, is more than a lifeboat. It is a vessel of alchemy, a floating chamber where the old dissolves so that the new may be born. Imagine it as a cosmic Athanor, the furnace of transmutation in which ignorance melts away, preparing the way for wisdom. And what greets Noah at the end of this trial? Not another threat, not a decree of fear, but a covenant. A rainbow arcs across the sky, shimmering as the first promise between God and humanity. In mystic thought, the rainbow is not just beauty after rain, it is the full spectrum of light itself, the bridge between worlds. To see the rainbow is to glimpse the union of spirit and matter, a reminder that after destruction comes renewal, after descent comes ascent. But if Genesis offers the canonical version, other ancient texts paint an even more enigmatic picture. In the apocryphal Book of Enoch, the flood becomes less about corruption of morality and more about corruption of knowledge. According to the story, before the waters came, the earth was inhabited by giants, the Nephilim, born of the union between the sons of heaven and the daughters of men. These beings taught humanity forbidden arts, metallurgy, sorcery, cosmetics, astrology, the craft of war. Civilization leapt forward, but at a cost. The balance of creation shattered, wisdom without guidance turned to ruin. The flood, then, was not merely about erasing sin. It was a universal reset, a way to prevent sacred knowledge from falling entirely into the wrong hands. Yet there is a striking paradox here. Knowledge itself was not condemned. What destroyed the Nephilim was not wisdom, but misuse. In this version, the lesson is sharper. The very same light that illuminates can also blind if it is severed from ethics. This tension pulses at the heart of every esoteric teaching. The initiate who seeks power without purity becomes a tyrant. The word spoken without truth becomes a curse. Light, misdirected, becomes shadow. And so the flood is less an external catastrophe than an inner process, the moment when consciousness must dissolve what is false before it can rise into what is true. In alchemical texts, this is called solutio, the stage of dissolution. The ego, the old identity, the world of illusions must first be submerged in the waters of chaos. Nothing new can be created without first being broken down. There is no gold without the mud, no spirit without the death of the profane. The flood becomes the symbol of that sacred breaking, the collapse of form that makes space for transformation. Seen this way, the flood is not a past event but a cycle repeating in the life of humanity and in the life of each individual. It comes when noise drowns out silence, when ego drowns out spirit, when separation drowns out unity. It comes not to annihilate but to awaken, not to erase but to force remembrance. The true flood is not water, it is forgetfulness. And the ark is not only a wooden structure but the inner sanctuary each of us must build, the place of stillness, faith, and preparation. What is most striking across these myths, from Utnapishtim to Manu, from You the Great to the Hopi elders, from Atlantis to Noah, is that the flood always carries dual meaning. It is destruction, yes, but also a seed, a terrifying reset, but also a cleansing womb. Humanity does not simply vanish, it is invited to start again, hopefully wiser. The waters destroy only to reveal the essence that survives when everything superficial is stripped away. And perhaps this is why the myth refuses to die. It is more than memory of some ancient catastrophe. It is a mirror, reflecting back to us the state of our consciousness. When cultures forget the sacred, when we as individuals drift too far into noise and distraction, the waters rise again. They may not always come as literal floods. Sometimes they appear as social upheaval, as personal crises, as collapses of meaning. But the pattern is unmistakable. Every flood asks the same question. Are you ready? Have you built your ark? Have you gathered within yourself the seeds of wisdom, the animals of instinct, the tools of memory and gratitude? Because when the waters come, and they always come, those unprepared are swept away. Not out of cruelty, but because they have nothing to cling to. So what then is the flood? A punishment from angry gods? A natural disaster magnified into legend? Or something far more intimate, a reflection of the tides within the human soul? Across every tradition, one truth keeps surfacing. Water does not simply destroy, it transforms. The flood is not only the end of a world, but the beginning of a new one. The collapse of an age followed by the birth of another. It is both grave and womb, terror and promise. If we strip away the cultural details and peer beneath the stories, we find a rhythm repeating itself. Mesopotamia warns us that forgetting the divine invites collapse. India teaches that the flood is a comma in the cosmic cycle, a pause before renewal. China shows us that survival is not about defiance but harmony, listening to the soft wisdom of water. The Americas remind us that when humanity loses gratitude and consciousness, the world itself revolts, forcing us to remember. Atlantis whispers that even the most advanced civilization can implode when knowledge is severed from the sacred. The Bible and its Apocrypha insist that the true danger is not knowledge itself, but its misuse. Again and again, the flood returns as teacher, sometimes gentle, sometimes merciless, but always with the same lesson. That which is false must dissolve so that truth may endure. In mystical traditions, the waters are never just physical. They are the unconscious, the great unknown, the ocean of being that both terrifies and nourishes us. To enter the flood is to enter the depths of the psyche, the womb of the collective soul. Jung might have called it the descent into the unconscious, the necessary plunge before renewal. Alchemists called it dissolution, the breaking apart of the old form so that the philosopher's stone, the essence of gold, can be born. What makes these myths so haunting is not that they belong to the past, but that they echo in the present. Look around us today. Aren't we too drowning in noise? Our cities never sleep. Our minds never rest. Our hearts race to the rhythm of endless distraction. The waters of forgetfulness rise not from the sea, but from within, submerging silence, intuition, the sacred connection that once guided our ancestors. And when the outer world reflects this inner chaos, climate upheaval, social collapse, technological addiction, should we be surprised? The flood is not a story we left behind. It is a cycle we are living. But this is not a message of despair. Every flood, no matter how violent, carries within it the seed of rebirth. Every collapse prepares the soil for renewal. The waters come not only to take, but to give, not only to erase, but to cleanse. And if the myths teach us anything, it is that survival is never about luck. It is about readiness. Those who endure are those who listen to the whispers, who sense the tremors before the tide, who build their inner ark long before the storm. And what is this ark? It is not wood and nails, it is awareness. It is the practice of remembering when the world screams at you to forget. It is gratitude when convenience tempts you into numbness. It is reverence for the unseen, for silence, for the pulse of the cosmos flowing through every breath. Your ark is built with the seeds you preserve: compassion, wisdom, humility, courage. It is guarded by the animals of your instincts, not rejected but tamed, harmonized. It sails not through oceans but through the floodwaters of illusion, carrying you toward the mountaintop of clarity. Perhaps this is why the myth never dies, because it is not only about ancient civilizations or divine wrath. It is about you. It is about us. Each of us will face floods in our lives, moments when everything dissolves, when identity crumbles, when the world we trusted collapses beneath us. It may come as loss, as heartbreak, as crisis, as collective upheaval. And when it does, the question will not be why me, but have I prepared, have I built my ark? This is the compass the myths hand us. They do not promise safety from the waters, but they show us that drowning is not inevitable. They whisper that even in collapse there is meaning, that destruction is also creation, that every flood is a call to remember, to return to essence, to step out of noise and into silence. So as you listen to these stories of Utnapishtim's cube, of Manu's boat guided by Vishnu, of you carving rivers into harmony, of the Maya clay men washed away, of Viracocha's new humanity born on the waters of Titicaca, of the Hopi sheltered underground, of Atlantis swallowed by its own arrogance, of Noah's rainbow bridging heaven and earth. Ask yourself, which flood are you living through now? And more importantly, have you built your ark yet? Because the flood is not coming someday. It is here, always in the background of our lives, rising and receding like the tides of consciousness. The myths are not warnings of the past, but invitations for the present. They do not ask us to fear the waters, but to enter them wisely, to dissolve what must be dissolved, to preserve what must be preserved, and to emerge not unscathed, but transformed. The real question is not when the next flood will come. The real question is, when it does, will you be ready to rise with it?